Buying something always requires us to have some emotion about what it is we're purchasing. But we have to justify the purchase, don't we? How do we do that? Well, most of the way we do it is we Google it, we look at reviews, but very often we look at the content that we want to know that what we're buying is credible, it's valuable, and it's something that's going to be worth our investment. Hi, I'm Ralph Henderson. I am your host of today's Supply Chain Marketing Group webinar series. Today, we are really excited to be talking about content strategies. For the longest time, we in supply chain marketing have been creating great products and services, and we put a lot of effort into making sure those are valuable and have a return on investment for our clients. Well, now with the advent of technology and AI and optimization and online, man, now more than ever, we need content behind that. I'm excited to be talking about today where standing out in this highly and competitive connected marketplace, you have to have a strategy for this. And today you're going to learn one. It's called Attract, Connect, and Convert. And we're going to emphasize how we can build meaningful relationships using that strategy and our digital capabilities. We're also going to learn how strong content management mirrors a traditional supply chain, believe it or not. We're going to talk about turning new ideas into impactful content that drives business growth and fosters long-term relationships because that's ultimately what we want. And believe it or not, we can get that through the content. Today, we're going to get all of that information from Melissa Taylor. Melissa is a well-known top strategic business consultant, author, sought-after speaker, and mentor. In her lifetime, she's built three solid and successful and profitable businesses. We are excited to have her here. She's going to be going through the strategy with us, and then we are going to get some time for questions and answers. So please be thinking about that. Put those in whenever you want. You don't have to wait. You have a Q&A icon. Tell us, what you are thinking about, what you want to know, and we'll get to as many of those today live as possible. If we don't get to your questions, please know Melissa will get back to you because we want to make sure we follow up with everyone. And with that, I know you're just as excited as I am. Let's welcome Melissa Taylor. Melissa, welcome to the show. Take it away.
Well, thanks, Ralph. It's great to be here. So I am excited. I've been reading Supply Chain Brain for a few months now, about 6 months since Ralph and I first talked. So I am by no means a supply chain guru, but I do know a lot about content marketing and content management strategies. So we're just going to kind of hop right in. So there'll probably be some questions at the end, but there's a really good way that you can think about content. So content is used for lots of different things. Primarily, it's used to attract, right? Make people aware of who you are, what your brand is, have some visibility out there in the marketplace. Like Ralph said, everybody Googles everything, right? So everybody goes on and they look at reviews. And that's true even in your businesses, in your industry. People want to know how you deal with crisis management, what your company stands for, all of these different things. And the only place they can find that, of course, is the content that you put out there. Now, there's some misconceptions about different kinds of content, right? So there is what we call owned, paid, and earned. And owned content is what we're really talking about today. So that's the content that you create, that you put out there, that you push out there in different ways. That is stuff that you own. So think of articles, blogs, newsletters, social media. Maybe your C-suite does some speaking engagements, or your vice presidents do speaking engagements. This is all content that you are curating and pushing out. Then there's advertising, and the advertising is really stuff that you pay for. So that really is just promoting sales, right? It's promoting getting people in the door to actually have them buy. Now, the original one that we talked about, the marketing, the owned stuff, it does support sales, but it doesn't always have those direct call to actions like advertising does that you pay for. And then, of course, there's earned, and earned is PR. So when you get awards, accolades, it's your reputation. So what other people are saying about you, that's all the PR stuff. And that again can be enhanced, and you can direct the narrative of that by making sure that you're putting out the content and shaping the direction of the narrative that you want out there about you, your company, your team, your leadership, all of those things. So that's really what we're talking about with Aware, Connect, Convert. And we're going to be talking about those words a lot today. But the first thing we're really going to jump into is why content. So before we do that, I want to have an idea of how you guys are feeling right now about your own content creation strategy, your content that you're putting out there. Just give me an idea. Just go ahead and choose one of these on the poll, either feeling great about it. You're like, I'm not quite sure why I'm here because I feel great. We're doing wonderful. Things are coming in. You're doing okay. You feel like you kind of know what you're doing, but you sometimes struggle maybe with topics. Struggling a bit can also be if a little bit more struggling can be on that one. Feeling completely overwhelmed. Maybe that's why you're here today. You're like, it's overwhelming. I know I need to do it. I just don't even know how to get started or how to make it look good. And then, of course, haven't even started. If you haven't even started it, we definitely want to know that. So I'll give you guys a second to answer those. Okay, so feeling great. About 14% of you are feeling great. That's wonderful. Hopefully today, what you will get out of today is the ability to have more topics to talk about and how to convert those, how to take them from awareness and connection into conversion. Doing okay, that's good too. You're going to be right about that point. So about 36% of you are at doing okay. Again, even with 36% struggling a little bit, I will tell you most people fall into those two categories, either doing okay or struggling a little bit. And then 7% feeling overwhelmed or haven't even started. So welcome, you 7%ers. We're glad you're here. Hopefully you won't be so overwhelmed by the end of this and you can really get started. So content actually plays a multifaceted role in your complete concept of marketing and advertising for your business. We all know it has SEO benefits. That's pretty common understanding of that. But what you might not know is with SEO, anytime you have stuff out there, especially the written word, transcripts from a speech, you can create backlinks. So your SEO can really get boosted that way. Brand awareness, we've talked about that a little bit. Reputation building, lead generation, that's the conversion part. What I said before is content actually supports sales. We'll talk about that some as well. Audience engagement, overcoming barriers. This is one people don't always think about. You can overcome those frequently asked questions, those obstacles that people have, simply by having content out there that they can find and they can consume, and then their questions get answered, maybe even questions they didn't know they had. You can answer all those frequently asked questions in several different ways from several different perspectives, and they help overcome. That's part of that supporting sales. If people can come knock on your door and they've already gotten over all those questions and obstacles, think of how much easier the sales process will be. Stakeholder confidence, that's to and including if you are a publicly traded company, your board members, those kinds of people, making sure they have the confidence and see that you're keeping your finger on the pulse of the industry. And then collaborations. And in supply chain, this is really crucial because you guys need to have collaborations with other supply chain partners, either before you on the chain or after you on the chain. And so if they know what you're doing and what's going on in your business, those partnerships can become stronger as well. So there's lots of different areas that you need to think about, not just sales, 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 buy, come use us. It's also a lot of other things that go into this. We have a little bit later on, I'm going to give you 15 different topics that you can really write on. Take those 15, write on each one of them twice a month, and you get the goal, right? Good strategy. So we're going to get into that too. But let's take a look at the supply chain. Now, again, I'm not a supply chain guru. But when we look at the supply chain, you guys it's not advancing. There we go. You have raw materials, you have manufacturing, you have quality control, you have warehousing, and you have logistics. I'm sure there's a lot of other things, but those are the big buckets. So in content strategy, think of the topics as the raw materials. You have ideas, you have all this stuff that you could talk about, these different things. That's all these raw materials just sitting there waiting to be used. The creation strategy is the manufacturing part. So we take those ideas, we take those topics, and we turn them into usable things. And then quality control. This is key too. We're going to go through these each individually, but quality control, alignment, proofing it, making sure it's going to hit the right target. Warehousing, you have to have a place where all of this lives so people can easily come and find it, a library of information, get all of their questions answered right away. And then logistics, how you distribute it and how you repurpose it. Okay, one talk, like say someone decided to use this talk out for content. This one talk could be used in about 100 different ways. You can pull quotes from it. You could do the transcript. You could do shorts from it. You can do reels from it. There's lots of different ways you can repurpose one piece of content. So any one blog you write, one article you write, one video you do, one speech you do can be repurposed in lots of different ways. So let's first kind of jump into the raw materials. Defining your topics, gathering the information, the data, motivational quotes, copy, brand copy, all those things. I am assuming that most of you already have a brand kit, right? Now, that's not just your logo and your colors, but it's everything that has to do with your brand and the narrative that you want to put out there. You know, it's interesting. Recently, there's been a lot of studies being done on like millennials and the generation after them was that Gen Z. They are very interested in working for and working with companies that have, you know, standards, companies that have core values that align with their own. So making sure that you get that kind of messaging out there is very important. Now, I will tell you, some of the supply chains that we've worked with, some of the companies we've worked with, they're like, I don't want to do that. That's too personal. We're not personal. We want to stay professional. And I'm like, you don't have to tell us who your dog is and all these or what you ate for dinner. It's more about just making you human and your team human. This is all part of the raw material that you have to pull from. So we went in and, one time we were talking to them, we were like, hey, do a meet the team, meet the warehouse crew. It was a warehousing place, meet the warehouse crew. And by people meeting the people that were in the warehouse at the front desk, at the order desk, at the account receivable, all those desks, now they felt like when they called, they knew Ralph, they knew Anne, they knew John because they'd seen this content that was put out there about Meet the Team. So all of your content, all of your topics, all of your raw material doesn't have to be about what you do. It doesn't have to be concretely about what you do. There's lots of other things that you can talk about. All right, so you have a bunch of raw material, and again, we're going to give you about 15 different ways to look at that. Bunch of raw material. My suggestion is to create a document somewhere, Google Docs, whatever you're comfortable with, and just have all these different topics. And when you think of something or somebody thinks of something, just go jot it down. So then when you go to do the month's scheduling posts on social media or some articles or some newsletters or whatever, you've got all these ideas in this like bank for you just to go pull from, and you're not trying to create something from scratch. Now, in our third session of this series, we're going to talk about how you take that and use AI to help you actually create the content. But right now, it's just about gathering those ideas and getting all that raw material together. So then you go into manufacturing. Now, defining a strategy, again, it's aware, connect, convert. So when you manufacture, you have to get all three categories. So ones that are in the awareness category, some of the things we've been talking about, which is how you do what you do, why you do what you do, who does what, who's involved in what you do, what your core mission values are, mission, vision, core values, those kinds of things. Makes people aware of you, makes them attracted to you guys. You've probably heard different things. People might say, showcase your Clifton strengths or showcase your archetype, your brand archetype. There's all these different ways that you can do it. It's just a matter of being very, very clear and conscious that you're saying, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is who's involved. That's part of that attraction piece of the attract, connect, and convert. Now, connect is when you provide them things. right? So you're actually providing them something they can get involved in, something they can make decisions on. We talk about little decisions at a time, get them to make these little micro decisions that you know what you're talking about. Oh, there she goes. She knows what she's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. This company knows what they're talking about. That just gets them closer and closer to a firmer connection with you. So then when they do reach out, because again, our goal is for them to knock on your door instead of you having to go knock on all the doors, right? So when they feel that, when they come and they do knock on your door or you do reach out, they know who you are. They feel connected to you on some other level. And then conversion. This is where we have a few sprinkled in that are call to actions. Buy now, schedule now, let us come solve your problem, tell us about your problem. Here's how we do things. Let us do that for you. That's where we get that conversion language going on. Now, it's not 30% or anything like that, right? You normally want to have your attraction stuff to be somewhere around 40%. And then the connection stuff, probably somewhere around 40%, 30 to 40%. When you first start off, it should be more towards 40%. And then your conversion stuff can be that last 20% or 30% as you get going. But you always want to maintain those kind of ratios because it's really more important to make sure that you're continually attracting new clients, as well as that attraction retains current clients. It might even bring back some past clients. So we want to make sure that attraction is in the strategy. And those are those buckets: traction, connection, and then, of course, conversion. So once you have that and you've got a strategy, so let's say you're going to do, 3 articles per month and 1 newsletter and 15 social media posts, and your CEO is going to do a speech every quarter that you're going to repurpose from a speech, whatever that looks like. Lots of other stuff can happen, but just as an example. Once you decide that strategy and you write the content, you manufacture the content, it has to go through quality control. So you want to make sure that you have someone on your team that is in charge of this, someone who understands the brand guidelines and the mission and the vision and the core values of the company, frontwards, backwards, inside out, every which way, so that they know that not only does this match what the company wants, they're also very clear on the audience and who we're trying to reach, and it definitely will align with them and meet their needs. And then, of course, actual proofing, typos, grammar, making sure we use emotionally charged language, not dull language, word counts, making sure they're not too long, use of bullet points, all those engagement things that keep people coming back and coming back. Now, I will tell you, in today's world, video is a huge part of quality control because you want to make sure that video is included. So I'm not saying you have to become TikTok famous or Instagram Reel famous. What I am saying is that the more you can have little snippets of some video with audio or not, doesn't matter, just little snippets of video, it's going to make a big difference. So let's say you're posting on LinkedIn. If it can be a video rather than just a stagnant, graphic, you're going to get more attention. You're going to get more engagement from that. A warehouse that was, we worked with a girl that was working with the warehouse. She was a content creator. And one of the fun things she would do is she would go around and she'd just have one of the office staff go up to other people in the warehouse and do the little half a heart. And she was just seeing who would actually finish the heart on the video. That video went viral. I mean, it got so many views and it had nothing to do with warehousing, right? So it's just a fun way to have some fun. They did another thing where at Halloween, they all put, like a goat, they were dressed up like goats with sunglasses on. Again, just a way to make the team fun and kind of show the culture inside the warehouse. I know it sounds silly, but it does make a big difference when you do little things like that. Now, coupled with that, they talked about how they handled crisis management, what they did when there was a shortage or somebody else in the supply chain before them was on strike or was having issues. They talked about how, all those different things that they do in their business to make sure that you're, as a customer, you are not affected by their piece of the supply chain. They did that as well. But there was just some fun interspersed things to make a difference. Number one, it made them have more fun with the content, and it also got more engagement. Okay, so now you have all this stuff. You've got it clearly defined with your brand guidelines and your customer alignment, all that wonderful stuff. Where does it live? So you don't want to have it here and there and yonder. You're going to repurpose it here and there and yonder, like LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever your audience is. But the thing that you want to remember is there needs to be a central place, like a hub, for them to come back to. So if they're out here and they see this piece of information, it leads them back to here. That's part of how you're going to convert people. When they go back to that hub, it's probably going to be some type of a website, some type of an article page, something like that. You might have your RSS feeds in there from your social media. You can have pop-ups that actually say, hey, do you want to have a chat about your supply chain challenges? You might have a white paper they could download. Those different things are them knocking on your door. So if we can get them to the content hub and we can have some of these pieces and parts where they could get a white paper, contact you guys, get in touch with you, tell you about their problem, whatever, that's again, them knocking on your door, giving you their name, their contact information, phone, mail, email, whatever you ask for. You don't want to ask for their firstborn child. You just want enough information to be able to get back with them from your sales team. But that's part of that conversion as well, is where are you warehousing this? And then logistics. I've mentioned it a few times, but making sure that you distribute it, you have a plan to distribute it, and then we repurpose it. So every one post should not just go out one time. Because if you're doing posts on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you do your posts, only like 3 to 4% from the algorithm of people that are connected with you are going to see it the first time. So you're going to want to make sure that you post it multiple times over multiple days or weeks and have multiple different ways for people to engage, because that can help the algorithm show it to more and more and more people without you having to boost it with money or create an actual advertisement. You can work those algorithms in different ways by repurposing and having a plan to have that happen on all your different channels. All right, so let's get into the actual content. So this is the manufacturing part. So once you have some topics, you have some ideas, and you're trying to manufacture that content, there's a few things you want to think about in every piece you put out. Is it touching someone's heart? Now, this doesn't have to be Hallmark touching, right? This can just be an emotional connection with the audience. So let's say that your audience predominantly is very frustrated with whatever you do in the supply chain, okay, or your piece of the supply chain, not you, just that piece of the industry. They're frustrated, that's what they're feeling. So by touching their heart, establishing that emotional connection, you're going to be using language that can help them feel more relieved or calmer or less panicked or less frustrated about those things. We often tell people that we work with, the first thing I ask them when they start to do content is, what are the top 10 frequently asked questions you get about your business? That's where you should start. You should start by answering those top 10 questions and make sure you're using emotional language to make sure that people understand how to not be frustrated, how to not have the reaction they're having now, and how it could be better if they were using you because of your philosophies, your methodologies, your strategies, your processes. So we're touching their heart with an emotional connection with the audience. Now, once you've touched their heart, though, oh gosh, yeah, it feels like maybe I could be less frustrated with this company. Now you have to influence their mind, because the logic will eventually set in. Okay, so we've all been there. We've been out starting to make an emotional purchase, and then someone taps us on the shoulder and says, oh, wait a minute, are you logically thinking about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? They will do that in the sales process. So make sure that your content has things that can persuade them through logical reasoning and your insights. This is where case studies, white papers, and things like that used to be very, very valuable. And I'm not saying they're not, but they're long and they're hard to read, and people maybe don't read them all the way. So in session 2, I'm actually going to show you how to take some of those case studies and turn them into what we call a victory arc, A-R-C, a victory arc story. So making sure it's a little bit more digestible to make sure you're influencing their mind, helping them overcome objections and think through the decision logically, or think through the content that they're consuming logically. So we've touched their heart with some emotional connection. We're influencing their mind through persuasion and logical connection and reasoning. Then we need to equip their hands, provide those tools for what they can do about it, whether on their own or just a decision, some of those micro decisions we want them to make, because it's not truly a call to action piece. It might be a connection piece or an awareness piece, but we're still equipping their hands, providing them tools. resources that they can take action on, decisions they can make, some micro decisions on. And then, of course, moving their feet. Moving their feet is really reserved mostly for those ones for the conversion type. So the conversion type, or being on the website and consuming some content there, maybe a pop-up comes up that has kind of a move your feet kind of a message on it. So it's inspiring them, it's motivating them to take that next step. Now, what that next step is up to you, but we normally tell people you need to have degrees of movement. So you shouldn't ask somebody to run if they haven't been on a walk with you yet. You might want to have some that are a little easier for people to digest, to take action on, and then an intermediary one like skipping or jogging, and then a full out run once they're ready to go. And I'm not saying you can't go to the full out run, just the more content you have, the more it's going to support them running right away. So you just want to kind of build that up and just continually get that in front of people. Okay, so now there's a lot of topics that you guys can talk about. I would think, and from reading Supply Chain Brain a few times, listening to the podcast, these are some of the things that come up quite a bit. Obviously, reliability, dependability, meeting deadlines. Be creative about how you talk about that. This is where you can do some victory arc stories, some case studies, some simplistic case studies in that case. But you want to make sure that you are showing real life examples of how you are reliable, how you are dependable, how you meet deadlines. You can also do your philosophy on this. So you can take it from a processes point of view and talk about your processes and how you do things. And you can take it from a real life example point of view. So right there are two different pieces of content. Methodology is more about the awareness, and the real life examples is more about the connection piece. So aware, connect. Okay, so you can take that same topic, that same raw material, manufacture it in two different ways. Same with resiliency and crisis management. Big topic right now, right? How does your company deal with resilience, deal with crisis? And what's your red phone? Do you have a red phone? Have some fun with that maybe. Again, philosophy, methodology, and processes in place, and then real life examples to show them how it happened in real life, provides that more connection with them. Now, creativity and ingenuity. This is where you can really talk about some of the fun stuff, right? Maybe some AI that you're putting into your business. Maybe some robotics that you're putting into your business, maybe some other creative thing that you're doing in supply chain management and your piece of whatever you do in the supply chain. This is a time for you to say, we think outside the box. Let me give you an example. One of my clients, she used to own it was a warehouse, right? But what they did was they sold big, huge. I mean, these bolts were huge, and these, nuts and bolts and all these different pieces and parts. Well, they had to get really creative because when somebody would order a bunch of those heavy bolts, and if they just put them in a box, like a cardboard, even reinforced cardboard box, the box would fall out, things would go all over the place. It was a big mess. So one of the pieces of content they put out there is how they creatively and used ingenuity to create this different type of box so that wouldn't happen. And so then they had some fun showing like a competitor's box that falls apart and their box that doesn't. So you can really show how you're really making a difference in whatever it is that you do inside the supply chain with creativity and ingenuity. Okay, quality control. A lot of processes, methodologies, philosophy on quality control, so that they know that when this thing is in your hands, it has to go to the next one, they know that they're handing it off to somebody they can trust. It's going to have the same type of quality control that they have. And then when they hand it off to that person, they know that you have created partnerships with that person, or there's a partnership angularly that you're all using kind of those same philosophies and methodologies for quality control. That's really key. Now, to that, I will tell you that even if you put out the best content in the world, there's a bunch of typos, there's a bunch of weird photos that aren't aligned or they look like AI did them. I mean, it's just not very good. That actually speaks to your quality control, your in-house quality control as well. So be sure you're matching your quality control that you do in your business to your content as well. Don't let a CEO or a vice president go out and speak unless they've been trained and they can speak well. They can represent the company and be the face of the company in a very good manner, because that can really hurt your quality control. It can also hurt your industry thought leadership. Now, industry thought leadership is a big one. You need to have, I don't know, one, maybe two people in your company, depending on how big your company is, that are the face of the company. Not the face of the company that, like, you know, they're the guy that's grandfather started it in 1972, but rather the face of the company that is like, we're in this, we love this business, we love this industry, we're making strides, we're trying to make sure that we are on the cutting edge of technology, and be able to articulate that in a way that he can be used on video in speaking engagement, he or she, right? Getting that thought leadership out there, saying, we're not just a manufacturing place. We are this, we are that, we are doing this, we are doing that. We're not just a warehouse. We're using this new robotic technology. We're using this new AI technology. Here's how we're actually implementing it. Here's how we modify it for our own systems and processes, whatever it is. But it's the thought leadership that you want to make sure you are getting out there. Because if you don't put it out there, no one else is going to, right? There's not going to be a little mouse that walks in and sees the wonderful things you guys are doing and the smooth way that you run. And that little mouse is going to go out and tell somebody, and somebody's going to bring a big PR crew in to do a big, big expose on you guys, right? It's about what you can produce and put out there. You are in control. You're in control of the narrative that you are putting out there. So make sure it's a good one. So we want to make sure you are being seen as an industry leader. 5 more topics. Get to know the team. I cannot stress that one enough. It is so important for people to know when they pick up that phone and they call and Susie answers the phone, if they can register a face in their mind, boy, that connectivity is going to be so much stronger. So get to know the team. Those are fun ones. Have a retreat, or just, go on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, go in and just do interviews with people, and then just slice those interviews up and have a bunch of little fun clips. Future trends and predictions. This is another one where you can use some data. So this can really speak to the logical side, the people that want kind of that logic, not so much the heart. They really want the logic. You can talk about, right now, it's the beginning of 2025, but at the beginning of any year, you can look back at the last year. What did we do that last year? What were the trends? What are our predictions for the next year? Looking at the industry as a whole, and then looking at your piece of the industry, and then looking at your specific, what you want to achieve, your goals, and what you're thinking, and the predictions you have for your company. So making sure we have those out there. Industry regulations. All industries have regulations, and they seem to be constantly changing. So if you can stay up on them and be abreast of them and point people in the right direction, not only tells them that you're aware of it, that you've studied it, but it also might save them some time, some effort, some money by being made aware of some of those little nuances or those little things. So have your team dive into those, figure out what's coming right now as far as regulations, what's being loosened, and then more importantly, kind of what is coming down the pipe. What's being talked about that might become a regulation that's going to impact your piece of the industry or any piece of the industry. The interesting thing I found when researching supply chain is, a manufacturing warehouse company can talk about all the different pieces because they know things that are happening in the other industries, in the other pieces of the industry as well. And sometimes those things affect them. So it doesn't matter what piece of the industry you're in. If you have some regulations that are coming down, talk about it. Just talk about it. That's going to be a big one for you. Technology advancements, implementation. I know for a fact there's a lot of robotics being used in manufacturing and even warehousing and things like that. They're using AI technologies coming on board more and more and more. Where are you on that? How do you feel about it? How do you stand on it? Are you implementing it? How are you implementing it? Are you creating something? Do you want something created you wish somebody would create? And you could say, hey, I wish somebody would create something like this. There's all different kinds of ways to talk about it, to have fun with it. Obviously there's some horrific accidents with some of this technology. Don't showcase those. You might have a funny one that you can maybe showcase. So just think about what you can do as far as technology advancements and implementation. What is your company doing to make those strides? Now, again, millennials and Gen X are big into social responsibility. So, how's your business? What is your philosophy on social responsibility? If your team goes out and does a volunteer project, if you are partnered with some nonprofits, if you have some of those causes that you really speak up for and are involved in, make sure that people know it. Now, some people kind of get sticky about this. They're like, well, we're trying to do good, so we don't want to pat our own backs on social media and in our articles saying, hey, look how great we are. That's not how you do it. You don't have to do it in that self serving kind of manner, but you can and you should let people know. My website, for instance, has a whole page on there of nonprofits that we support. So our group goes out quarterly. We actually kind of spotlight one nonprofit every quarter. We go do a hands on project with that nonprofit each quarter. So in the course of a year, we do four. We put all of them on our website. So for the past couple of years, we have a bunch of different nonprofits that we have supported. It's just our way of saying, these are some that we like, these are some that we use. Yes, we care about the community, things like that. So who in your group, maybe the company right now isn't doing a lot of things like that, but there's somebody on your team that does. There's somebody on your team that, from a personal standpoint, is involved with a nonprofit or two. Seek that out, seek if it goes with the mission and the vision and the philosophy of the company, the core values of the company, maybe get involved. Also, social responsibility, of course, goes to, you know, how are we also responsible for the environment and things like that. So there's different ways that you can use this, but certainly don't hide it under a barrel. Like, make sure that you're shining a light on the different things that you do. All right, here's a few more. Communication. How do you guys communicate with your clients? How do you communicate with your customers? That process, always a good one to touch on. Being transparent. What's your philosophy on your transparency? Maximization of ROI. Oops, one too fast there. Maximization of ROI. How are you going to make a difference in their business? Making sure you show that. Again, you can use victory arc stories, which are those kind of case studies that we'll talk about in session 2. Scalability and capacity. What are you capable of? Do you have the ability to take on big new clients? Do you have the ability to handle this or that? You want to talk about that. You want to show them how you can do that. And then, of course, how you deal with flexibility and adaptability. That's another one. So all in all, it's all about kind of the same thing as supply chain. We've got the raw materials. We need to create a strategy for attraction, connection, and conversion. Then we need to manufacture that content, distribute, and repurpose it. That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So I want to open up the floor to questions.
Wow. That was great. I wrote all kinds of notes down.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, and I will tell you, it's really cool these days. You know, you see all the people getting their AI involved in the webinars. So we have a couple of those. So they'll have some great summaries from your talk today as well. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so that was kind of neat. I love the methodical step by step. You know, having now been in this space since 1991, one of the things that I think is a double-edged sword for us is that we are, we're really particular about how our stuff works.
Mhm.
And that matters to us. But at the same time, it kind of sometimes hurts us when we need to get off the beaten path or what have you. And so I like your kind of step-by-step approach into the creativeness of creating the content. I think
Mhm.
you married those two worlds together quite nicely. Please remember now, we're still taking questions. If you have any questions for Melissa, by all means, bring those in. We have several of them already, and I'm excited to get to those in just a minute. But just a final reminder for you if you want to put some questions in. So here's a question coming from the sales and marketing and business development world that I love because it just dives right into the meat and potatoes of this, and it is, what time frame are we talking about to have content to start producing leads?
Yeah, I think that's a great, great question. And you're going to love my answer. You ready for it?
Yeah.
It depends, right? Yeah, it does. It depends. It depends on how much you're consistently doing it. Some people think, oh my gosh, I posted 5 times this week and I put an article out this week. Okay, this many people saw that. So you want to make sure that, again, repurposing it, taking it and exploding it. We do 3 to 4 posts per day, 7 days a week. We
Wow.
do an article every single week. We do a newsletter that goes out once a month. We do shorts. There's a lot of things that goes into it. So it depends on how much content you're putting out there, where you're putting it, and what kind of call to actions you have dispersed in there for them to actually come knock on your door. But with that said, I would say that you should see some increase in the engagement within 3 months. And after you have increase of engagement, so that's that attract piece, right? It's going to take maybe another 1 or 2 months to really start to get people connected and really following and consuming on a regular basis, getting a download here or there, whatever. And then within 6 months, you should start to see those coming in.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what's really cool about this too, Melissa, is I can see how people can engage this into the other things that they're doing, like trade shows, for example.
Yep.
Right? I mean, or even
Mhm.
campaigns.
Mhm.
One of the things that I have the pleasure of doing is producing webinars in the supply chain space. And I could see this being something you could easily enhance that by doing things before the show
Mhm.
that would help you to generate those leads as well.
Absolutely.
So
And
that's very
webinars
cool.
or campaigns or even email campaigns, we have a formula for that too. I know, big
Oh,
surprise,
good.
right?
Yeah.
But we call it enlighten, educate, engage. So the first thing you have to do is enlighten them. So if you think about like today, right, we're enlightening people on a few things maybe they haven't thought about, maybe some topics. The second session we're going to do is engaging them in what I call a spark story, which is your personal company story, and then victory arcs, which are case studies. So we're engaging them in that way. And then the third session we're actually doing together is enlighten, educate, engage. So sorry, I said that one wrong. So we're enlightening them this time. Second session is educating them on how to do some different types of content. And then the third one is engaging them by showing them hands on how to use AI and automation to help them out.
Excellent.
So,
So
yeah,
yeah,
you can
so
always do
that's
that.
good for this audience to know. We've got two more episodes, so that's important.
Mhm.
And we are, as you can tell already, we want you to actually use it, to apply it, to learn
Mhm.
it. We're Supply Chain Brain Media has just decided we really want this to be a professional development initiative. So that's coming. The other thing we are going to provide to you guys is contact information from Melissa. So feel free to bombard her with anything you need. And we'll get you that information in just a minute. Okay, back to the question. Second question is how many times a week? And you started talking about this already, and I love this topic because so often I think, especially in the supply chain space, we work with the NFL, we work with live entertainment, we work with other industries, but in the supply chain space, we tend to be a little reticent or a little hesitant. And so the what the questioner is asking, and maybe because you started talking about it, is how many times a week do I really need to be doing this?
Yeah, again, need is a relative word. It depends on how quickly you want things to happen.
Right.
Usually, when people first get started, if you've never done any, then our recommendation is start with an article or a podcast,
Oh,
like be a guest on a podcast, something like that. Start with some kind of what we call long form content. Okay, so if you get one piece of long form content, then you can just repurpose that. So if you have one piece of long form content every month, you can repurpose it about 20 different ways, double
mm,
post all of that. So that's 40 posts plus one
wow.
long form content. That's a
Wow.
really good way to get started. But here's the good news, you're only creating one thing and then you're
Right.
just repurposing it. And AI can actually do that for you.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No. And this is the stuff we talked about at the top of the hour, the content syndication stuff, where if somebody's getting ready to buy what it is you're selling, hopefully your brand is out there enough, they're finding you. But now they're going to do that research, that Googling and what have you. And so having this long form content that Melissa's talking about, and we do the same thing when we're buying stuff. So,
Oh, yeah.
none of us should be surprised about that. All right, the next
Mhm.
question is, where do you suggest we place this content for
Your
distribution?
website. Your
Okay.
website. My opinion is your website should still be your digital brick and mortar where anybody and everybody can go and find it all. right? So you can
Okay.
have your RSS feed right into there from your social media. So if they find you on social media, they get led back to there. If they listen to you on a podcast, you're sending them right to there. Because what the beauty of that is, right there, they could go watch your YouTube, they could go listen to your podcast, they could go read an article, they could go straight to your social media feeds. It's just one place and has it all.
Excellent.
So
Okay,
that's where it
cool.
should be.
All right. What balance do we need between the content that is for awareness and connection versus conversion?
Yeah. So we did talk about that earlier, about 40% awareness, 30 to 40% for a connection, and then 20 to 30% for conversion, depending on where you are in your content. When you first start putting stuff out there, the worst thing you can do is buy me, buy me, buy me
Yeah,
when you
right,
first show up. When you first show
right.
up. So you really have to get that 40% of awareness out there before you and the connection stuff before you even do call to actions. You need to kind of build that up a little bit.
Yeah, and one of the things I talk about is that lead generation becoming a byproduct of those first two, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
right. So talk a little bit to that because I think, and we love our audience and I really want them to learn something going into the next 12 months from this
Mhm.
webinar. So talk a little bit about, why that's so important and what that looks like.
Right. Well, it's that age old thing of, a guy goes into Lowe's to buy a hammer or to buy a screwdriver or to buy a screw or whatever. And, if the salesperson says, well, what kind of hammer do you want to buy? This one's got all these whiz-diddly gadgets on it, or this got, this is great, buy this one. This is great. This is a great brand. This is da 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 da. But instead of taking the time to say, well, what are you trying to build?
Right.
Like he doesn't need a screwdriver or whatever to make a hole. He needs a screwdriver because he's making a treehouse for his kids. So like, what are they trying to build? So we can do that better through awareness and connection than we can with buy me, buy me, buy me.
Right.
Right. Because even though we can't ask them the questions, it's not like we can listen to them like one on one and then answer their specific question. We as an industry should know what our typical questions are and the typical things that are going to touch their heart. And so that if we start our content with that kind of information, it's going to be much more engaging for them. And if you think about yourself, do you go to a place, buy from a place or buy from a person because they said, why don't you come buy from me? Or did you go to them because you kind of respected them?
Hmm.
That old thing of know, like, and trust. I say it's a little bit antiquated. You really want to think about it as, are they aware of you? Do they respect you, which they can get through consumption of, and then do they believe that you can actually solve the problem? Again, through consumption of content, they can respect you and they can believe you. They don't even know you.
No, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. And I would argue that that's the essence of this webinar, of this episode, is what you just said. If they believe in respect, that we're done.
They're going to knock on your door.
Right.
They're going to
So
knock on your door.
but the
Yep.
question is, and this is what you spent the first 35 minutes talking about, is how do I create that awareness and that respect? And so that's where the work comes in. But that should be
Yeah.
fun. That should be fun for our audience. That should be
And
what,
yeah.
they get up in the morning for is how do
Mhm.
I create awareness and respect? And I got to tell you, I'm getting chills right now, Melissa. That's what I'm going to communicate to people about this episode. How are you creating awareness? How are you developing respect for your audience? What does
Mhm.
that look like? And if you
Mhm.
need a step-by-step plan, just watch this webinar. I mean, she just
Yeah.
walks you through creating awareness and respect because at the end of the day, if you have those things, conversion starts to look a little interesting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
And,
much
and
easier.
and you were talking about something, and I know we've talked about this during our prep sessions. I used to say something when I was in business development and sales all the time. Instead of knocking on doors, they should be knocking on yours, right? That was my
Mhm.
catchphrase. And the reason for that was because we were creating awareness, we were creating the brand, we were creating the respect. So kudos
Mhm.
to you for articulating that. All right,
Yeah.
next question is, when you say content, this is a good question. Is it all social media based?
No,
Okay.
it's not. In fact, that's usually the repurposing piece of it. Again,
Mm,
if you create that long form content, that's really what you should concentrate on because the stuff on social media, that's easy. Like you can get an
okay.
AI thing to do that,
Okay.
right? So like if you give an interview, right? Like I could take this interview. I could probably find a couple of quotes from me and a couple of quotes from you, and I've got at least 10 posts, right? So the social media stuff isn't really where it's at. Social media is for social proof,
Mm,
right? So people will go out there and they just want to be able to find you, to see what you're saying, to have things on there. You want them to go back to your hub to consume your actual content.
interesting. That makes sense. And then here's a really good question. What is the best content to get out there?
Well, that was this whole hour, right? Like we talked about that. But if you've never done anything, honestly, the place I would start is get your mission, vision, and core values out there from a personal side.
Right.
Maybe some of your methodologies or your philosophies with how you do business. And then from a connection side, answer all the top 10 frequently asked questions that you get. Just answer them.
I like
I
it.
mean, it can be just as simple as sit down with your VP of sales and say, what are the frequently asked questions you get? And just record his answers and then take that and turn it into content.
I love it. Yeah, I oftentimes will tell people when I'm producing a webinar, you have two audiences, the informed, educated, experienced, ready to buy audience, and
Mhm.
the inquisitive, what is this all about? I need to learn more audience. And to your point, what we should be doing is creating questions for this first audience and answering them, creating questions for the second audience and answering them. And the reason we do that is then the marketplace realizes we get you. We
Yeah, we get you.
understand, right?
Yeah. And the age old thing is true that if you can articulate their problem better than they are able to articulate their problem and show them a solution through
That's right.
stories and through content,
That's right.
they're knocking on your door.
Yes. All right. So, because of time, and I
Mhm.
love this webinar, I'm looking forward to the next episode. We will give you guys in just a minute how to register for that next one. We're also going to give you an asset, thank you, Melissa, on how to start developing your content. Before we get to those two nuggets, final question is, we've been in this webinar now for nearly an hour. What do we want to remember? What do we want to do as a result? And I'm going to put up your last slide so you can
Mhm.
talk to that and maybe tell them what you want them to remember and what you want them to do.
Sure, no problem. So the biggest thing is, really thinking about that awareness, that attraction piece, and then the connection piece and the conversion piece. You want to first create a strategy. Now you may need help with that if you've never done it before. Certainly, reach out to myself or someone else, but create that strategy. Once you have that strategy in place, then you're going to manufacture the content. Start with long form content. Think about long form content you can create. And then in that strategy, you're going to define in that strategy how to distribute it and repurpose it. And then so that third step is really implementation of that.
Perfect. And like I said, I promised, we will get you information for those who have registered and attended. We'll get you information on how to connect with Melissa. She's obviously on social. So if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, you can do that. And then remember, we do have two more episodes. The next episode is creating your spark and victory arc. And then session 3, what would a webinar series be without AI? So we have to talk about AI and how AI can help us with the content creation. And like I promised, you also have access to a PDF to help you get started with content creation, Supply Chain Brain Media, R&M, Ralph and Melissa, although that's not what the R&M stands for. We really want you guys to develop something because then we want to hear from you. We want to hear how it went. We want to know what you did. We want to know what the questions are and certainly any success stories and what have you. And then of course you can scan that QR code on the right. That'll get you to the next episode. And we're really looking forward to having Melissa back with us for that. Thank you so much today, Melissa. This was really a
Welcome.
joy. I really appreciate it and really, really well done. We'll look forward to episode 2. And with that, guys, go out there, create some content. Let's attract, let's create awareness, and let's ultimately get that conversion so we have a successful 12 months.
This has been fun. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, my pleasure. And have a great day.